Hello, I'm the TV critic and broadcaster Scott Bryan, and welcome to this very special celebration and masterclass of one of the very best shows of 2022, in my opinion, Heartstopper. This Netflix adaptation of the popular Alice Oseman graphic novel and webcomics became an instant and critical sensation on its release earlier this year. It also sparked a national conversation about the importance of storytelling aimed at younger LGBTQ plus viewers, and a realization that something like this had been fundamentally lacking on British television. So what are the secrets to the series' overwhelming success, and what lessons can be learned about adapting literature and popular books for the small screen? Well, you're in luck, because we've got from left to right, Alice Oseman, who is author, illustrator and screenwriter, someone of many talents. We've also got Patrick Walters, executive producer of Seesaw Films and, of course, Heartstopper. We have got Corrina Brown, who plays Tara Jones in Heartstopper, and Kizzy, Edel, who plays Darcy Olsen in Heartstopper. Please welcome them along. Thanks very much. So, just in case you haven't seen the first series of Heartstopper, in which case, how dare you? I thought to just give, and also good as a little bit of a refresh, a quick recap of the first series. So let's start at the very beginning, Alice. How did you come up with Heartstopper?
Well, so kind of a long, complicated story, but before I wrote Heartstopper as a graphic novel, I was and still am an author of young adult fiction. And my very first book, called Solitaire, which came out in 2014, is about Charlie's older sister, Charlie being the main character of Heartstopper. And in Solitaire, Nick and Charlie are in a relationship, but they're secondary characters and we don't really learn much about them. So after I wrote Solitaire, I knew I really, really loved these characters and I knew that they had a story. So it took quite a long time, several years, but I eventually decided to write that story as a comic, and I launched Heartstopper in 2016 as a free webcomic for people to read. Yeah.
And then, was it always a kind of a vision that you really wanted this to become a TV series at the end point? I guess kind of when you're creating something, you sort of think about where it could end up. You might not know where it does, but when you sort of thought about, oh, I could make this into a TV show, is that?
I think that definitely, that thought wasn't present like from the start. I think because I wasn't even sure if Heartstopper had a chance at being published as a book. And it took several years for that to even happen because it's so rare for webcomics to make any money, really. So the thought of a TV show was, I never thought that would even be possible. But also, I think it's secretly every author's dream to have a work adapted. So
I think one thing that I've always loved about Heartstopper, but also just from your work from the very beginning, is just how not only inclusive it is, but how realistic it is. I mean, when it deals with identity, it could end up resulting in generalizations, sometimes inadvertently, about somebody's identity. I guess sort of, how do you manage to make sure it is so reflective, but also never going to generalizations about people?
That's a big
Sorry,
question.
sorry. 2 minutes in.
I mean, I think that's all part of being a writer. It's just kind of listening to people and seeing people and trying to sort of reflect the worlds that you know. Well, certainly for me, who I've always written contemporary fiction, and trying to capture that realism is a really big element of my writing and what my stories are and what the purpose of my stories are. So it is challenging, that is part of the challenge, I guess, but something that I've had many, many years of experience doing. So yeah.
Let's bring in you in, Patrick. How did you first hear about Heartstopper?
I just came across the graphic novel when it was self-published by Alice through a Kickstarter campaign. And I think I came across it because at that point it was about to be published by Hachette, but it hadn't been. And I read it and was just like, oh, it's making me feel so much because your drawings are so expressive, and I sort of really identified with Charlie. So I just had this kind of overwhelming passion for it as a fan, and I wanted to meet Alice. And so it sort of, it went quite quickly after that because I got in touch with your agent, and soon we were in a room together and I was sort of going, I love this so much. And I think meeting Alice, I was sort of struck by the passion that you have for the characters. They are real, people in your mind. So it felt at that point to bring in the conversation around Alice screenwriting and adaptation. That happened in our very first meeting, and that sort of began a journey of just an amazing kind of creative collaboration, really.
So was there something just in it that made you go, there could be something on TV here?
Totally, and I think because they were younger characters, it felt so important because it reminded me of my time at school, but it was like a better version of that because they were much more open and there was a feeling of found family and sort of inclusivity. And I was like, I never had that and I want that. And so there was this sort of real sort of feeling that there was no TV show like it, and that was the reason to do it, and to do it really wholeheartedly.
So talk to me about the next step. When was it the idea of, how do we pitch this and who do we pitch this to? And I guess also you would never been a screenwriter before, so I have to think about that. So what was the next stage that made you decide where to go with it?
I think we were both really aligned that Netflix were the right home for it because we wanted to make it for everyone, but we wanted to first and foremost make it for that young teen demographic to go, this is you guys, see yourself reflected in this, because we don't feel that there's been a TV show that's done that. And so I think the first sort of strategic next step was to go, let's go Netflix, but let's go kids and family Netflix, not the traditional drama route. And they were really receptive, and I think, there was never a question so much for us. So
So what was the pitch like? What was the actual? Was it just very much? Were they sort of instantly taken? Wanted to go along with it?
We had a lookbook, didn't we, that we were sort of agonising over because we had all of this amazing illustrated material Alice had done, and we were putting it together with little extracts of scripts that you'd written, and then kind of we just met two amazing execs at Netflix, and we were like, this is it, and they immediately were like, Alice is, one in a million, it felt like to them clearly. So we were sort of away, I think.
How did you find the transition to becoming a screenwriter then? Daunted?
Yeah, definitely daunted. I mean, Seesaw, Patrick, I was working really, really closely with Patrick, and he asked me to try writing the first 3 scripts. And I went into it like, I'm going to give it a go, and if it's not good, I don't mind. We'll find a screenwriter to do it. But then it was challenging in some ways, but in some ways it felt very natural because the way you write a graphic novel is very similar to a script because it's all dialogue and scene directions. So I fell quite naturally into the format of a screenplay, even though I'd never written one before. And the challenge came from kind of more the sort of conventions of TV, like cliffhangers and making sure there's enough plot drama to keep an audience hooked. And that was more because Heartstopper, the comics are quite a slow-paced, kind of low-stakes story, while that doesn't necessarily work for TV. So, it was a learning experience, but one that I really enjoyed.
Well, we'll get on to the learning experience in a short second. I think first we should also talk about just the casting generally. Because I think one of the most amazing things is how the casting was so well thought through in every sort of element. I guess I'm intrigued, like, how did you come up with this being a core ambition of the show? And then also you decided to do a quite a large casting process, didn't you, via Zoom?
Yeah, I knew how important it was to find the perfect cast. I've seen so many book adaptations kind of crash and burn in the eyes of the viewers because the cast just isn't right. And there were so many factors that were important to us, like finding actors who are around the right age. And just, it was a challenge. It was a challenge.
Because I feel like we wanted them to walk in and sort of meet them and feel like they were innately right for it. And for a while it felt like that wasn't happening. And then suddenly they all came in. It was like we only had one choice for each of our lead ensemble, and there was no backup really, because there's just a sort of, I think, lots of different factors for Heartstopper, because you've got drawings that you're sort of comparing to. You want it to be, you know, inclusive and diverse, but you also want real acting. You need real acting capability, and so all of those, the Venn diagram of that was a scary casting process, because we were meeting lots of actors who had never acted before. And yeah, the casting gods aligned, and it all sort of worked out, thank goodness.
Well, let's bring you in, Kizzy and Corrina. I guess sort of how did you both first hear about Heartstopper? And also, I guess, we'll talk about it in a second, then the audition process for you as well. Starting with you, Corrina.
Yeah, so for me, I had just finished uni, and the audition actually came through my agent. And I remember I had Tara's monologue from episode 6, and I remember reading it and being like, wow. Like, I think I did my self-tape like 5 or 6 times. I was like, no, I've got to do it better. No, I've got to do it. Like, that bit that I wanted to get in, like, I didn't. So yeah, that's how it started. Excuse me. And then, yeah, then we had the Zooms. Those were fun. And then Kit and I did a chemistry read first. And then I saw the open call go out, and it was like a waiting game, but Tara and Nick weren't on it. So I was like,
because we'd found you.
Yeah, but at the time you don't know. So I was like, oh, please. And then we had a full chemistry read. We met, like, we all met, and it was like magic. I remember us doing the milkshake scene as like an improv-y, getting into it, and it was really fun, and that's what I remember and taking away. So yeah, the process was fun for me.
How about for you, Kizzy? How do you get involved?
I came through open casting, unlike Corrina. So there was this big search. It was open casting. There were a bunch of different people that they thought might potentially work. And then, same as Corrina, I did a Zoom audition, and then we all met up. I knew Heartstopper because I'd followed Alice on Tumblr for a while, and I'd loved it. And I'd always loved Darcy, which is my character. And it was so exciting to audition, to do this monologue that wasn't in the show but had been written for Darcy. I think I did it about, I'm going to trump you with the number. I think I've done it more times than you. I think I did it about 30 times, honestly. Late at night in my room, I was like, this has to be perfect. I really want this. And I was really happy when I got it.
What is it about Darcy that you really like?
She's like a lot like me if I was more self-assured, more confident, and more outgoing. I'm a bit jealous of her demeanour and her confidence.
What about for you, Tara? I mean, as in your character, Tara.
For me, I really like Tara's positive outlook on like life, and like her love for her friends, and her like relationships, and her good energy. So I think like that's how like I like to think that that's how we relate.
You do have that.
Okay. Someone could be like, no, you're such a cow. But yeah, and I feel like that element of Tara's a lot, that I carry that, yeah. So, yeah, I'm waffling now.
Talk to me about, I guess, seeing the characters for the first time come to life. That must be really rather surreal.
So surreal. Like they were saying, we had this, all of our auditions were on Zoom because of COVID until this final chemistry read where we had the main 6 come together on this one day, and it was literally so magical because they all just walked in and it was literally like my drawings had come to life. Very, very surreal, but I do feel like the luckiest author in the world because they are all so perfect and they are just, you know, as I imagined, and that doesn't always happen in adaptations, so yeah, it's very special.
So we've talked about how we essentially got to the start of the show. Let's move on to actually talking about the development. I guess you had not been on a TV set really before, and now you've screen wrote a whole series. I guess sort of I'm so intrigued about the partnership between you two. You know, you've had TV making experience. Sort of what was it like collaborating? Because you were on set every day.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I I don't even know how to describe. Like, I didn't know anything about TV, like anything. And Patrick was just kind of there as like a mentor to kind of guide me through the whole process and just explain like everything, because I really didn't know anything.
But you had the complete creative vision. So it felt to me like when we met, I was like, you want to be across every little bit of the show because it will make the show so much better. And so it was a kind of really exciting moment because I was ready, you know, to show you like, this is what it's like being on set. This is what you can do. This is what it's okay to ask about. And so we sort of went on a journey from the first day of the shoot, being a bit nervous and excited. And then by the end, you know, we'd found a way of sort of like, you know, if we had a thought about how a scene was doing, we could go up and talk to the director, who was amazing. And it just felt like a real collaboration between the three of us. Yeah. And I think, yeah, you came away from that feeling like you'd affected everything that you wanted as much as you could, which was the only goal that I had really going into it.
Because one of the things I absolutely adore about Heartstopper, along with many other things, is the small touches that are throughout. That it can feel as if when you're reading the webcomics, you know, there are some scenes in which it's like the same camera angles and the same sense of small touches and the illustrations coming through. Like, was it kind of the case that you felt that just by being there, you were able to sort of go, oh, I could take that bit, or kind of the process of you both going, I can take this bit here and move that over there? Was that something that by being on set you were able to do?
Yeah, I think like both of us and Eros, the director, we all cared so much about bringing the comic, like sort of honouring what the comic is and seeing the comic on screen. So I always think about how the Eros, our director, when he was kind of blocking all the scenes, he'd have his iPad, and on one side of the screen would be the script, and on the other side would be the comic.
No, really?
Yeah. So there are so many scenes in the show that are almost exactly kind of frame by frame the same as the comics. And you know, if he had a question about something from the comic that he's not sure on, or if any of the actors had a question, I was there to kind of answer those questions. So yeah.
I mean, this is what I'm so intrigued for, just the fact that it's quite rare to have somebody like Alice involved on set. I guess for you both, Corrina and Kizzy, what was it like to say, essentially having Alice there to give advice on everything from character to kind of how to portray the character in the right way?
Well, Alice would answer questions. I think that's the most important thing, because Alice knows everything about these characters, every single little detail. When we were in rehearsals, we did this hot seat task where we had to just sort of improvise as our character. And having Alice there and being like, oh, you know, their parents are like this is actually part of their backstory that I've thought about, gives them so much more depth than them just being a character in a script. These are people for Alice, and having Alice there, yeah, makes them feel more whole.
Yeah, I definitely second that. Like, just it felt like a privilege to have you there. I could run over and be like, "Am I doing it right?" And then like run away again. So yeah, honestly, and everyone was always so helpful. Like the full creative team, and Eros would give us like little tips and notes before as well. So it was just like we were lucky, really lucky.
But I guess also in terms of translating the webcomics to a TV show, there were some things that just because of the conventions of TV, you couldn't do. I guess kind of what were the creative choices in terms of deciding, you know, what you could and what you couldn't? Because I guess some fans, and I am one of them, I've sort of gone through the webcomics being like, oh, that's a bit different, and that's a bit different. I'm sort of intrigued by the differences too.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I was saying about the comics are so low stakes. Like, when problems arise in the story of the comic, they're solved almost immediately. And that is something that people like about the comic. But that just doesn't work for TV, because if there's no drama, people are going to get bored. So the big changes that we made were all in the view of sort of adding more tension and elongating the character journeys. Like, for example, Nick, who goes on this sort of sexuality journey in Heartstopper. In the show, it takes him longer to sort of figure out who he is and feel comfortable with who he is, while in the comics, he sort of figures out very quickly, and that's really nice. But yeah, so there are differences, and I'm at peace with that, and I think that is possible while also preserving the essence of the comic.
One thing I forgot to mention at the top is that you can ask Q&A questions through this. Should have mentioned this 25 minutes ago. It is quite complicated, but essentially the best way to do it, and I won't say this backwards, is take a photo of the QR code. That would take you to the Edinburgh homepage. You can then click on Q&A, and then if you select Fintry, you can then write a question in, and then that will come up on my iPad. Should have said that a little bit. Is that right? I said it right? Okay, good. Right, I really want to focus on one particular scene, because I think for me it sort of highlights and celebrates kind of what is the show, all of the greatest things that the show is. I think for me, just as a viewer and as a critic, like, I already love the episodes going up into this, but this was the first time that I went, this is something a bit different. This is something much more meaningful. It's the clip. I mean, I'm going to ask you to kind of provide the context because you wrote it rather than me sort of say it. But I guess, could you give a little bit of context of what happens up to this moment?
Yeah, so leading up to this moment, Nick and Charlie, the main characters of Heartstopper, have met and become friends. They're getting really, really close as friends. But Charlie is openly gay, and he has such a crush on Nick. But Nick is starting to wonder, he thinks he's straight, but he's starting to wonder whether he has feelings for Charlie as well. And in this scene, he has just spoken to an old crush of his called Tara, played by Corrina, and she has just told Nick that she is a lesbian. And now they're all at a birthday party, and Nick is walking through the crowd looking for Charlie.
That was great. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's have a look at this moment. Oh, try not to cry challenge. Oh God, sorry, that really. Anyway, promised myself I wouldn't do this. I mean, firstly, for you both, Corrina and Kizzy, what was it like filming that scene? It feels special to watch it. It must have been special to have been.
Like, honestly, like, you see how good it looks on screen. It felt like that as well. Like, we had all the music and, like, the lights, and it honestly, like, it was one of my favourite filming days, to be fair. It was really hot, but it was really good. Yeah, we had David as well, who was the intimacy coordinator. And obviously this was, like, their Heartstopper moment kiss. So, like, we did our walkthroughs, and we spoke about the essence of it, and I just feel like us coming from like the same page on that and like understanding the moment just helped it like come through so well. Like it was great. It was one of my favorite days.
It was really lovely written in the script. I had such this picture in my head when I first read the script, and Alice does these little drawings of the Heartstopper moments in the script. And there was a little rainbow coming out from this section, and it was so cute, and I was like, I know what this is going to look like, and it looked just like I pictured it. And I love working with Corrina. She's got this mad, incredible energy that just made this scene feel really easy and really good to film because I've got Corrina.
But also, like, I mean, we were chatting before, and the music that you hear on the screen is literally being pumped into the room itself.
And to get it to drop at the right moment. So the sound team were like, what? Because it's really important. There's a moment in the song where it drops, and that's when you have to play it at the right time. And they were like, what? And so there was a lot of like the normal chaos of set and then getting the music all right. But we really wanted the music to be playing out. And it created this sort of moment where Eros, our director, and me were just standing there like tears in our eyes because it was literally as moving as it is to watch it back now. It was just an extraordinary moment where it all just came together in the look and the feel and the performances. And yeah, I think Kit has said that he was just standing there literally taking it in as himself at that point and was just so moved by it. So it had that essence on set.
How, I mean, just for you, being from the very start, right? I mean, how was it just for you being on set, seeing that moment, seeing the final edit, I guess, as well for this?
So amazing, and I mean, it's amazing just being there on the day and then seeing it all edited with all the colours. It's like such an elevation of what you've seen already, which is already amazing. So I feel like when I was on set, I was just in a trance the whole time because it's just so surreal to hear people perform words that you've written. But yeah, it's so cool.
But it's also, I love, yet again, because like the whole theme of all of Heartstopper, all of the little touches, like how was it come up with even that you have the subtlety of the sort of the pride flag colours in that scene being shown? I mean, I'm just so intrigued about, like, for a lot of viewers it's blink and miss it, or some viewers might get it, some viewers might not. It's just in that scene, how did you come to the decision to be like, right, we're going to have this with the lighting?
I think, well, as Kizzy says, that you had drawn in these little doodles, we call them Heartstopper doodles, and when we were in development with Netflix, we really wanted everyone who read it at Netflix to visualise what it could be. And so it was quite laborious and put a bit of pressure on you, which, it got a bit old after a while, but we would drop these little doodles into the script. And so that meant that when the actors started reading it, when the HOD started reading it, they had some sense of like the celebration of that moment. And I think it's about going, this is a moment in a story and we're honouring that, but it's also a moment to say there's a pride flag on screen, and so it's for any young person watching it to feel like that's for them. They should feel included in this moment, and it's about openness and communication and joy, and that comes from you and from the source material. So yeah.
We got a question in from the QR app thingy for Corrina. Some actors don't like watching themselves on screen. Do you look back on your own work? Is it something that you enjoy doing?
Yes.
I do watch things back that I've been in. Like I really enjoyed watching Heartstopper back when we watched that. There are things that I've watched and I'm like, oh my god. But I think it's that thing of, like, it's sometimes hard because you're looking at yourself, like looking at all the, like I do it anyway, looking at all the worst bits, and I'm like, why does my lip twitch like that? Yeah, so sometimes you just got to take that step back and just look at it for what it is. But I do watch myself back and things. It does feel awkward. I don't ever know if it's going to go away, but we're here.
Someone also says, Kizzy, did you steal anything from set?
Yes.
Yes, I did. I was wondering if I should confess to that. In sports day, we had hoodies. I wore mine around my waist, and I couldn't leave that. So I've got this hoodie at home that has our school Higgs logo on it. I also accidentally, I took the tie from the school, didn't realise it had the microphone in it. So there's a mic at my house now.
We got this also through on the QA thingy. The soundtrack for the show played a huge part of the feel of the show. Kind of, how did you choose the music and sound for it?
We had a playlist all through while we were developing the show and writing the show. We were like continually adding to this playlist, and we had like quite a clear vision of the vibe and the type of music we wanted, like really young, Jen says, kind of indie pop type stuff. And then later, once we had all the scripts, we started thinking like, what are the big music moments in the show? Like, where will we definitely need a song? And then we were like brainstorming, what song could that be? And so we had quite a lot of...
It's so fun, that bit.
Yeah,
it's the funnest
fun.
bit. It's like, yeah, you're just excited. Like, do you feel something in music? And then you can talk about it and then try it over the cut. It's like, yeah, really great.
I guess kind of over the course of a series, it can be quite draining in like the best possible way. I guess I was just sort of finishing it. How did it all feel when you had the final product done, ready to go? Because there was a lot of expectation for this series, knowing that it was about to come out. I guess kind of you were sort of hoping it would have a positive reaction. Spoiler alert, it did.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a long process, I think. Even though in TV terms, like, it all happened very quickly, I think. Yeah. But I was just so happy with it, the whole way through. There was no point where I was like, oh, this isn't going well, like I'm really worried about this element of it. I was just so happy with how it was all going. And when we got to the end, I was just excited for everyone to see it, to see this thing that we'd been working on non-stop for so long.
Yeah, and I think we'd seen it so many times by the time that it came out on Netflix. So it was sort of this delayed thing where we'd had that kind of euphoric, oh, we really love it and we really believe in it. And then it took, you know, all the post gets finished and you wait a little bit for it to drop on Netflix. And then suddenly this huge reaction kind of came at us, which was amazing, but quite kind of a bit weird. And sort of you were kind of distanced from it by that point. But yeah, it's amazing.
But also for you two, like the casting, I guess, had not been publicly announced during the thing. So what was it like kind of being involved in the process, but I guess not telling many people about it until it was finally at the finish line?
It was like challenging, to be honest, because I just have to like leave. I live with my flatmate, so I just have to like leave and be like, yeah, I'm going. Bye.
You didn't tell your flatmate?
No, not for a while. I took it really seriously.
Okay.
Like, my agent was like, you can't tell anyone. And I was like, cool. I think I was like to my mum, oh, I've got an acting job, but I can't tell you what it is. And then
tell your mum.
No, but then my agent called me back and was like, you didn't tell your mum. I was like, you told me to tell no one. I was like, good, keep it a secret. But no, I told my mum after. But yeah, it was quite nice actually as well, because I could imagine if we had been announced, maybe we would have felt a lot more pressure. But whilst we were doing it, it was very much like our little show. So yeah, it was a fun process, and now obviously everyone's seen it, and the responses have been amazing. Like it's just like it's still our little show, but like the world love it too, which is great.
How about for you, Kizzy? Did you tell anyone when you were filming it?
I really struggle with keeping secrets, but I tried really hard. Told my mum immediately. I had to leave sixth form during my A-levels, just before my A-levels when we were on study leave. And it was very hard to not tell anyone where I was going. My head of year had to sign a thing saying he wouldn't tell anyone, and it was very odd. I did manage to keep it quite well. I think I'm very proud of myself for that, because I do like to talk. So
we've got another question here, and please do keep sending them through. It says, I find the consistency of the colours blue and yellow/orange incredible throughout the show, more than I've ever noticed before on TV, so subtle and consistent. How was that decided, and what was the process and conversations behind that?
That was, I think that really came from Eros, our director, who was just so passionate about being really consistent with the look and feel of the show, and inspiring his HODs to look at all the drawings that Alice had done that had colours in them, because the graphic novel is black and white, but you do colour illustrations outside of that. And so we took the kind of colour palette from that, and our production designer, our costume designer, and our DOP all worked together to make sure that there was this palette that ran through the show. So blue and yellow is a very kind of Nick and Charlie theme that recurs, and we had like the bisexual flag colours a lot when Nick's on screen, and I think it's just that everyone was doing it for the love of the source material and for the love of the story, and so those little added elements, lighting being a big part of that, just came naturally from the whole kind of crew, and yeah, it was great.
Let's talk about the reaction to the show, because I think it's, all right, thanks, Ivy. I think it's quite surprised, like, there is so much marketing that can go into a show to go and do it, but after a certain while, these things take off in their own trajectory. I mean, I imagine that when you had that show being released on that Friday at 8 a.m., that you were not expecting not only the sort of fans to love it, but also just the wider reaction from the LGBTQ plus community, from critics. I mean, I was sort of so intrigued about what was going through your head in those first few days, you know, knowing that it had a reaction which is, I would say, quite unprecedented.
I didn't expect it at all. I knew that it would get kind of that initial boost because of the fandom from the comics, but I fully was not expecting the reach to be so wide and to happen so quickly. It was just sort of
There were lots of like
wild.
different factors as well, because we had been through this experience of making the show with the cast who we knew were going to like explode in popularity after it came out. So there was the kind of nervousness around that, and would that go okay? And also being really proud of the show, so wanting people to see it and not expecting anything, but believing in it ourselves, so hoping. So it was like a lot of kind of unknowns, and then once it happened, it was great because it went really well. And I think you guys all, got on in terms of your social media is blowing up and all that sort of stuff, but it wasn't, not in a negative way. So a lot of the unknowns were taken away.
What was that like on social media with your accounts and just seeing the reaction so quickly?
It was crazy. I remember like my phone was just and I was like, oh my gosh, wow, it's happening. But then, it was all really positive. Everyone's been amazing. So it was nice. And also, if you just turn your phone off, then it's quiet again.
Yeah, the afterwards I think was the hardest part, just because I wasn't expecting to have that many eyes on me. And it can make me feel a bit nervous sometimes, knowing that people are looking at me, and I feel like I could mess up at any point. It's like so incredible to have so many people around me, but it is nerve-wracking. It's like a lot of pressure.
Because there's this related question that sort of says, that's come in, says, the show's been hugely successful, and for fan bases, particularly ones involving mostly young adult, it could be very on social media. I guess sort of, how have you coped with the fame and the additional pressure? But I'm also intrigued by kind of, Netflix's part in that, in helping you make that transition from being on a show that will be watched by many people at once.
Netflix has been really helpful. They've helped us a lot with, they gave us a set therapist, and we've had a bunch of press and social media training, and we know what the protocols are. So they've been really helpful, and they've made sure we know, how Netflix wants us to represent ourselves.
Yeah, I'd say for the same sort of thing. Yeah, they were very supportive. We had follow-ups, check-in sessions if we needed. Everyone on like the Seesaw team and the Netflix team were like, if you need anything, contact us. And so it's like, I've always felt like there is someone to reach out to, which was really good. And like I said, I've learned to turn my notifications off. Quiet.
That's brilliant. One thing that I forgot to mention, and now I don't think I can forgive myself that I haven't mentioned this before, the casting of Olivia Colman. Like, my word. How did that come about, really?
Well, we had this idea. We wanted like a big actress to play Sarah, who is Nick's mum, and so we sort of came up with a list of ideas for actors we could ask, and at the top of that list was Olivia Colman, and I literally said several times that this was the stupidest idea I'd ever heard, because I thought there was no way she was going to want to do it, because we're just this small, we were just a little show. We don't have any other really, really big names attached at that point. And why would she want to come and be in our show? But we just asked, and we sent her some of the scripts and some of the comic as well. And she clearly liked it and wanted to be in it, so...
And she'd also worked with Eros, our director, so I think that helped a
That's
little bit, because she was like, I love Eros so much, I'll do anything. And then when she got there and met Kit, and we had an amazing 2 days of filming, where she brought this kind of emotional newness to it, because she hadn't been part of the journey to that point. And she was just like, oh my God, your little face. I'm just gonna, she would be crying for real in the rehearsal. And it was so sweet to see kind of Kit's energy feeding off that, to have someone like that as a scene partner. And and all the crew, she was so lovely. Everyone wanted to tell their coming out story to her. So there was almost like a cue to her trailer to be like, this is how I came out. She was just listen to everyone from, So it was great.
Because that's one thing that I think is so amazing, is by having crew who are from the LGBTQ plus community. I guess sort of, like, why did that come to a decision? And also, what difference do you think it made to the final product?
A lot of passion on set. So like everyone was so invested, and you could sort of feel that. And I think because we were very open about, myself, Alice, Eros, the kind of creative drivers of the show were all from the LGBT community, and we wanted that space on set and all the way through to be reflective of that. And that was just met with open arms from the cast and the crew. And people went the extra mile because they really believed in it and they really sensed what the end product could be. And so it was just such a gorgeous experience, I think, for everyone. It was amazing. And
do you also think, as somebody who sort of grew up queer, I think sometimes as you notice things, like you notice how things are, like as you being a bit of an outsider, particularly at that age. So I think that like you're able to, I think, creatively feed that into something because you're noticing things differently than everybody else, if that makes sense. Like, did you feel that in the creative decisions that people were coming to you, being like, oh, you could shoot this in this way because that would make me feel seen, or that would make me realise about how that could be done, if that makes sense?
Yeah, Eros always described it as the queer gaze, and that's like his kind of how we just kind of approach the world, and how like we as a creative team like sort of all, I don't know, like work together, I guess.
And I think for me, I was sort of witness to the fact that everyone on set felt really ready for this. Like it was like it'd been a long time coming. They felt really able to be just themselves and to put that into the work. So, we had runners coming in drag, we had Pride Day, we had all of these things that are small things and in addition to the making of the show, but actually are really important in terms of the kind of spiritual ethos of it. So that definitely went into the product, for sure.
For you both, Corrina and Kizzy, what kind of highlights do you have from filming Series 1? What kind of stands out for you as particularly fun memories?
I think Series 1 was really cathartic. Because, like the cast and crew, most of us are queer, and that felt safe. The highlights, I think, were when we were all together. We filmed a scene where the boys do a big rugby match. And that was, I think, the day that most of us were on set together. And I just have such sweet little memories of us, like, huddling up in a tent while it's freezing cold, watching bad X Factor auditions. We just all got so close.
Yeah. I'd also say, like, for me, every day on set was fun because I was running around being a student. I was like, I'm being a teen again. So I just think, the atmosphere of everyone being so welcoming as well. And so, like, I'm really nosy. So I was going up to people doing sound, like, what are you doing? Can I help? And everyone was just, like, so welcoming to that and allowed us to have the space to be curious whilst being creative, and then it's a safe space, so I think that's how we got like most of the magic. We were just allowed to be, so yeah, it was great.
Fantastic. I think also without sort of now going all sad, in terms of the reaction to the show, there was also many people, such as myself, who sort of talked about the melancholy that watching the series can create, because I feel the joyful feeling that can come from watching this makes some viewers realise that for them, they were not lucky enough to have that experience sort of growing up. I'm sort of intrigued, sort of Patrick, like, did you feel that there was going to be a melancholic reaction? I know it's a very odd thing to say, because it's a mixture of emotions. It can be, I think, for older viewers watching.
It's an emotional story, I think, if you're not part of that generation who have, there's still a way to go, but a much more open and honest way of communicating with their peers. And I think that was, when I was chatting to Eros on set, that's what we felt was just so refreshing for us to see, is just the openness and the warmth that all the young actors had for each other, and how that was reflected in the story. And it wasn't like that when we were at school. But I think within Heartstopper is also this spirit that it's never too late, and that hopefully the melancholy is a fleeting feeling that kind of dissipates, and that the joy is what remains. And I think, you know, not to get too much into it, but we've got Mr. Ajayi and his storyline that's going to develop in subsequent seasons, and that's going to be just as uplifting and joyful as Nick and Charlie's. So there's hope for all of us, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I'm trying to sort of think about a way of phrasing that question without making it all too sad. But I think it's also like for all of you, just people telling you, I think, how much the show means to you. You must have been overwhelmed by just not only fandom reactions and the reaction to people loving Heartstopper, but also people talking about like how much this means to them sort of personally, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, as a writer, hearing that something you've written has personally affected someone is one of the best things that you can hear. It feels like it's all worth it. And so, you know, people have expressed how it's helped them come to terms with who they are or come out to a family member or things like that. And that just feels like we are, you know, putting something good into the world, which is a good feeling.
Because sort of speaking for myself, I wrote a letter to my school because I felt that they had failed me in terms of like having a homophobic environment. They didn't do anything about it. I was the only sort of out queer person at school, and I felt, you know, like the ways in which the school were responsible were not able to do that. So I sent this sort of long letter to them, not angrily. I was just trying to like restrain my anger, and then I got a letter back, which was kind of very detailed about, made me realise how much things had changed, because they were talking about like how much they teach LGBTQ plus history now, and also that they had a pride flag that they would put out during the summer, and they had one of their LGBTQ plus students do a thing at reception, like a little display. And I think it made me realise, just as a viewer, just how things have, obviously, you know, there's still homophobia, there's still transphobia, and that is an awful blight, but how things have changed so much in such a short space of time. I've really gone off on a tangent here. I guess series 2, I mean, and 3. How's that coming together? How's that going?
Well, I've been working on it. We've been working on it.
We're in the midst of it,
we are
so
in the
we're a
midst
little
of
bit
it.
like, oh, it's happening soon.
Yes.
Love
Very
how vague.
secret.
I can imagine. It says, just having a look at some of the questions. It says, I'm here as, we've got an answer in on the sort of thing. It says, I'm here as a mum on behalf of my 12-year-old Alice Oseman superfan who is cross not to be here. Thank you for enabling conversations between her and her friends as a family. Not a question, sorry.
That's lovely.
It says, we also had this, I mean, this is also kind of echoing some stuff we've sort of had before. It says, Alice, when creating the comic and writing the screenplay, how important was it that the story didn't fall into the tropes of trauma often seen in LGBTQ plus storytelling? I found it so powerful to see such a positive portrayal.
For me, that's a really important element of writing Heartstopper, the comic and the show. I want to show these realistic things that happen, like homophobia and bullying and mental health issues. They're all big elements of the story, but Heartstopper looks at those things with a kind of optimism and hope that things can get better and that there is joy to be found despite all of these things. And it is really a challenge sometimes to balance those two things and not fall too far one way or the other. But that is kind of one of the main purposes of the story. So, yeah.
We also got for Kizzy and Corrina, how many milkshakes? Oh, it's already gone. I think I know what the question is. How many milkshakes did you have during the milkshake scene?
See, I was smart. And after Kizzy's reaction, I was like, that's not nice. So I didn't actually drink mine. I was always like, and then cut. I was like, amazing.
First take, I drank quite a lot of the milkshake. And then obviously for continuity reasons, I had to keep doing that. So they'd top it up, and I'd prepare myself. And then I'd drink this mixture of flour, food colouring, water,
remnants of bubble gum.
something, yeah.
Yeah.
That's your answer.
We've got this from Jason says, Alice, you mentioned that Nick and Charlie first appeared in Solitaire. Are there hopes to create a bigger universe of Heartstopper shows?
No current plans. I think my life is consumed by Heartstopper at the moment. I literally don't have the brain space to think about anything else. Yeah.
And then I guess as sort of a final question as we wrap up, I mean, I know that some producers here might be thinking of adapting a young adult book, or might be seeing a popular trend with young people, and they would think, okay, well, how can I make this into a TV show? Having been through this experience, what would be kind of your kind of suggestions? What have been the main takeaways that you think they should consider?
I think I have two things that I would suggest. Firstly is don't be afraid to find a unique sort of aesthetic to a young adult story. I think a lot of young adult book adaptations can kind of all look the same, but with Heartstopper we had such a clear visual idea of what we wanted the show to look like, and for that reason it feels so magical and exciting and colourful. And secondly, in terms of writing, I think whether you're adapting or whether you're writing original fiction, treat teenage characters like human beings. Don't try and write to sound younger. I think a lot of adult writers can fall into the trap of oh, how do I sound like a teenager? What's the lingo? What are they all saying? But if you just treat them like human beings and write teenagers as you would write yourself or write anyone, I think that makes the story feel more real.
What a lovely note to end on. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I just want to say thank you to Alice, to Patrick, to Corrina and to Kizzy. Thank you also to Hayden and the team here setting this all up, and Netflix as well. Thank you. Have a lovely rest of your day. We're going to get through this together. I know it's long. Thank you so much.